this conveyance of information came through, and it wasn't, an English speaking voice. It wasn't me talking to a guy or an entity. It was just, and the best way for me to describe it was I had all of these proverbial dots in my brain from my past, from my future, from all the shit that I had fucked up, all the stuff I needed to take accountability for, what I needed to handle in the future. And I could never just be here, current, in the present and in the now. I clearly interacted with an energy or something that was what I considered my future self, and it was coming back to do a kind of diagnostic check. I can produce my own DMT and get into a pretty hardcore psychedelic state. I can also get into these kind of chill meditative Monroe states just by knowing what it sounded like, doing it for a week, knowing that, hey, this is, and I'm narrating a little bit here, but this is that kind of experiential thing. You come back and know how your body can fully feel without the governor, with rocket fuel and a nitrous boost and souped up tires and all this shit. And it's like you come back being like, wow, I am way more than my physical being.
It's almost baked into the design. It's like there's a reason so many of us have to hit rock bottom or go through something to have a breakthrough. It's just what it is, man. I mean, you just don't do that when things are going well.
There is research going into end-of-life application of psychedelics. So you can imagine a loved one, who in their 80s or 90s or terminally ill that know that they're going to pass. So do you drug them up with morphine in a hospice setting and scare the shit out of them where the hallway smells like piss and everybody's scared and moaning and miserable? Or do they have a mushroom tea at home where they can connect with what they consider God or source, have an empathetic relationship with the people around them, and, respectfully, with grace, transcend into that next period of their life?
This was a really special episode. So today we sit down with Adam Butler. He's the author of Butler's DMT Field Guide. I'm going to link everything down below. He turned to psychedelics and DMT specifically as a last resort. I mean, like so many of us, like myself, when I was in college, like maybe you right now, you're going through it. He was at rock bottom. I mean, depressed. He didn't want to be here anymore. And I think what's really powerful is he not only took DMT, but he then went and contrasted that with spending a week at Monroe Institute and joining one of their programs and seeing what that was like. And I think it gave him this beautiful perspective that only Adam can speak to. And it was just truly one of those conversations that I put the laptop down. I was like, man, this one's going to help a lot of people. So I encourage you to go get his book. He's got a podcast as well. He's just talking about some much needed stuff right now. So think you guys will love this one. Leave me a comment of anyone else you want me to interview. That is how I found out about Adam and so many others. So please leave me a comment. Also, guys, I did launch memberships. That is probably the best way to support me. I want to do this full time. I'm running and gunning for it. You see me posting more and more videos. I want 2026 to be the year I go, yes, I made the jump. Like, how sweet would that be? So I'm putting it out there. I want to do this. And beyond that, 95% of the people watching are not subscribed. So make sure to click subscribe and click that little bell. Even if you're subscribed and you're not clicking that bell, you're not going to see the episodes when they pop out. The algorithm is a little weird these days. So you have to click that bell as well. So yeah, guys, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. It's been so fun. I love having these conversations. I can't wait to have more. So without further ado, let's get on with it. Cheers. Of that. I love that you went to the Monroe Institute just to test it out. Like, I thought that was super gangster. I was like, gosh, because I'm jealous, man. I want to go to the Monroe Institute. Do you recommend? Should I go? Do you feel like now that you've been there, is this a place that most people who are interested in OBE should go?
100% highly recommend it for multiple reasons. I wouldn't go if your only goal is to have an OBE or to think that that's going to happen. That actually happens very rarely. According to their intro session that we had, like 5%, maybe less, have that OBE. That being said, there's so much about the experience there, and I'm sure we'll get into it, that make it well worth it. And I think on the top of that list is just taking the time for yourself, knowing that you're worthy of a week in the Blue Ridge Mountains dedicated for your self-growth. And I think you could do that at a bunch of places, including the Monroe Institute, and have it be beneficial. But it was awesome. And I did do it to compare it to my psychedelic trips.
Yeah. So for those like just joining us and about to start listening, so Mr. Adam here, big on DMT. And obviously, I've done DMT twice. It's part of my story. Did you know I've done DMT twice?
I heard one good and one bad.
Yeah, one good and one bad. And then you went to the Monroe Institute as well to kind of test, like, I guess the differences between them, because they both can be powerful. So talk to me about DMT. I mean, let's dive into this. I know you say you're not an advocate for it, but let's be honest, you are. But you're not telling people to go do it. However, you're saying it could be very, very powerful and very spiritual, um, which I thought was awesome, man. I mean, I had a really good experience. I had a really terrifying experience. Um, and so to me, I always, when I look at DMT, it kind of canceled itself out. And I don't know if I have at least right now at this stage of my life, like the want to go do it again. But to be fair, I've had issues with drugs and stuff. So I'm kind of like, I should probably
Well,
like move on from that part of my journey. But
I
I'm
would say
fascinated by it.
listen to your intuition on that. Whatever type of exploration someone's drawn to, I think a big part of this is learning to listen to your intuition. So, and yes, I'm an advocate for DMT, more for an advocate for self-exploration and understanding the layers and complexity that we all have. But I do start my book, and I typically start interviews with a disclaimer, kind of just stating out there that psychedelics are definitely not for everybody. DMT is not for everybody. They're incredibly powerful compounds, and it's not something that people should look for like it's a magic pill or that everybody's experience is going to be the same. That being said, for me, it was the shakeup that I needed to ultimately change the direction and course of my life. And I'd be happy to dive into any of the actual details. And I kind of gloss over it bullet pointed when I tell my story, because I want to, this isn't about my personal story at 45 years old. When people get to my age, and, really at any age, people just have a lot of shit happen to them. And in my particular case, I had basically life threw me so many curveballs in the matter of a couple of years that I was highly depressed, highly anxious, and quite frankly, suicidal. And I had everything in my life go to shit. And I turned to psychedelics kind of as a last ditch effort to say, hey, maybe this is something that could help me. And at that point, and still currently, there's a lot of information about the therapeutic value of shrooms and ketamine and DMT, ayahuasca journeys. So it was something that it was never something I thought that I would be drawn to in my life, but here we are, several years into the journey, and a book into it, another book coming, several podcasts going, and here we are talking about it. And I'm
I love
excited
it.
as hell because I get to share the message. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, like most things, right? You hit a wall and you go, okay, it's time. It's time to change. Most people's rock bottom, they think they hit it. And then you realize you got like 9 more times to hit it before you really hit it. And when you really hit it, you will know. But tell me, okay, so the one thing I am fascinated about with DMT, um, and I'd be curious because you're someone who's not only taken, but it sounds like you're very researched on it. I mean, you've done a lot of obviously personal experience, but um, this is something you're extremely passionate about. For me, it was more tried it in passing. It was probably at a stage in my life where I wasn't so spiritual, right? So I guess it kind of it didn't have that lasting impact. I mean, it definitely shook up my world, but also to me, more of a shakeup was probably mushrooms because before that, I had never done anything remotely psychedelic in that way, right? Where it alters your perception, where you go, whoa. So I think whatever you try for the first time is probably going to be that main thing. But DMT was crazy, man. And I am always fascinated that people, not every time, but there is a lot of similar things that people see. And I'm always curious by that. And I'd be curious because I don't know at all, like what you saw. And we won't make it all about you, but it's important, man. I think it's important to discuss what you saw and why it made you such an advocate. I will tell you the first time for me, I saw these, like everyone says, and this was before I even was looking into it. I saw shapes I'd never seen before. I'll say that. And I saw uh they felt alive to me. They were like some people describe them as jesters or no, but I wouldn't say they were like jesters, but they were like geometric beings is how I would describe them. Long kind of nosed, some of them, and they felt very much so alive. And I had this crazy moment. I guess I've never explained the full thing on my podcast, but it was like friend came over, just said, hey, I worked with him at Buffalo Wild Wings and he was a server with me. And he was like, dude, he had all these like sacred geometry tattoos that I thought were awesome. And he was like, have you heard of DMT? And I was like, no. And he's like, you got to try it. So we just planned a night. He came over. My parents were gone. I was at their house. Uh, we smoked it. So he was like, hey, when you smoke it, you're going to want to hold it. And he's like, and he kept saying, you got to break through. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? Break through. And I was like, okay. And so I ripped it out of a bong, held it, and I started to understand what he was saying. I mean, it was like light speed. I start taking off, right? And I'm like, okay, what's going on? I'm holding. He's like, hold it, hold it. When I let it out, it was like from the center of the room. It was like, and the whole room like changed in this. And I'm watching it like, oh my gosh. And that's when the beings kind of came. It actually got super gnarly for me to the point where I almost yelled. Like it was just very intense. And I was just about to scream, like, stop. Like it was just visually super gnarly. And then as soon as I was about to yell, it just kind of I hit this peaceful place where like I was in my parents' house, but like I would look at the Coke can, I remember, and I would like focus on it and it would just morph out and like kind of come back. And I remember looking at him and he just said to me, he looked beautiful. I just remember being like, oh man, like, do I love this guy? Like, what's going on? And he just looked beautiful. And he was like, he said, do you understand? And I was like, yeah, I understand. And he went, good. And he went, and then everything went back to normal. And I was like, whoa, dude. And I remember like coming to, my buddy was like looking at me and he was like, how was it? And I was like, wait, did you just talk to me at all? And he was like, I didn't say a word, dude. You were just sitting there. And I was like, you just asked me how. He reminded me this, like it was like something else took him over, and he was this sacred being, right, that was like speaking through him, but he said he didn't say a word to me. And so that was, then for an hour and a half after that, I felt love. I had another friend come over like 2 hours later, and I still was like, dude, I love you, man. It was just like classic, kind of feeling. But that was my positive experience. Would love to hear. I'm going to pass the ball to you now. Tell me about your first time.
So there was a couple things there that are very similar to my first experience, and even just the fact that you did that vibratory hum as you were kind of getting into that space. It is a visceral feeling, and it is something that you feel through every kind of cell of your body. But and that ultimate feeling of love and connection is also certainly there. But to get to my first day taking DMT, if I could, we kind of have to backtrack several months prior. And so at this point in my life, I had relationship breakups, 2 really good jobs that I had lost. I had threatened to kill a man. There was a lot of shit going on in my life. And I know that I needed to kind of take accountability of it. And a big part of this story, and I know you've battled with some addiction issues in your life. I was a really bad, narcissistic, belligerent asshole alcoholic. And I was basically since I was 13 years. So I'm coming on 5 years being sober now from alcohol. And that was a big part of my journey to kind of self-knowledge and ultimately self-love. But after finally getting alcohol out of my life, I was just kind of sitting there looking at all of this shit that had piled up. And I was at that point in my life still looking for external solutions to my internal problems, external solutions, excuse me. And I was blaming everybody else, whether it be that woman or that guy or that asshole, or somehow it was kind of woe is me, look what happened to me. And it wasn't until I started exploring shrooms that I was able to, a couple things happened. Get comfortable in that psychedelic space, which I don't think I could have had kind of the life-changing epiphany that I had with DMT unless I had that foundation in shrooms. And what led me to shrooms was knowing that I needed help, knowing that I didn't want to keep hiding everything with alcohol, that prescription drugs and pills and just kind of numbing my feelings and emotions wasn't appealing to me. And now I'd been hearing a lot of stories about the therapeutic value of mushrooms and psychedelics. So, and the fact that they were natural and organic was something that I felt comfortable kind of exploring. So at roughly, 40, 41 years old, I started experimenting with shrooms again. And I was pushing it, 2 or 3 grams and then 4 grams. My highest dose was like 7, 8 grams. And I did that for months. And it was incredibly challenging, where all of the proverbial, Jungian shadow work and dancing with your demons and finding your inner psyche, scars and warts and cracks, all of that shit happened. And it was it was really, really painful. And the analogy that I use, and I think it applies to a lot of people, is that just over a lifetime of living, societal plaque builds up on you. And it's just social media bullshit. It's expectations from other people. It's your own limitations. It's actual trauma. It's all of these things that kind of cake onto you over life, over the course of your life. And for me, they had just been bogging me down so much where I couldn't express myself. I couldn't receive any type of love or any emotion. And the shrooms really allowed me to blast that proverbial plaque off and to see myself for who I really was, the good, the bad. And I started taking accountability for where I was in life. And that I explored that for several months, and came out of it with a really good understanding of myself, but no real life-changing epiphany, no understanding of what I needed to do. It was more just like, wow, now I'm a sober asshole sitting here with all of this bullshit in my life. And that's what kind of led me to DMT. And I think for most people, whether it be DMT, whether it be the Monroe Institute, I mentioned I just booked a darkness retreat. All of these things, in my opinion, seem to come into people's lives at the right time for the right reasons. And if you hear the same thing 2, 3, 4, 10 times, I think, you got to kind of listen to that. And DMT was brought to my attention multiple times in a way that was, hey, this could help you. And, long story short, I had a friend offer it to me who had access, who knew the place that I was in. He's somebody that I love like a brother, and I knew that would hold space for me in the right way. And we set up that day to explore DMT. And, I can say that really was the day that everything in my life shifted and changed. And again, not some cure-all, fix-all magic pill. It was more just my relationship to myself, to time in particular, and my connection to my physical body changed in an instant. And that's when everything kind of changed. So to get, I guess, to that point, and I mentioned, and somebody that said that they've taken a couple bong rips, you can understand that when I say the first day I took like 50 hits, it was a holy fuck type of day. It was one of those, like, I really pushed it to the limit. And I did about 7, 8 sessions, and each session was multiple hits. And each session had this kind of weird progression until that last one when things were different. But I think the first and kind of the last session stand out, where that first hit, the first time I inhaled it, a few things. It just felt very natural. It felt very normal. It felt innate. It felt like something that I had experienced and tasted in prior. There was this very familiar kind of nasal sensation, or nasal cavity sensation, like this drip and taste that I had felt very familiar. It brought me back to my like kind of adolescent days. And it wasn't like shrooms when they start kicking in and you feel poisoned and you're kind of like, oh fuck, shit's starting to hit the wall, and you got to kind of hold on and handle it, knowing that this drug is taking over your body. With DMT, it was that the veil was removed, it was lifted. It felt like I was truly being a normal human with all of my senses elevated and new senses added, not, dumbed down or drugged down. It felt extremely like elevated, but there was no entities, there was no interactions. It was really just this beautiful sights and sounds and energy vibration, kind of like this amazing IMAX theater, and just kind of sit back and appreciate the show. But again, no epiphany, no downloads, no interactions, nothing to kind of help me at my mental health, issues. So I pushed it a little bit further. And you mentioned kind of that breakthrough where really the difference between 2 hits and 3 hits and 4 or 5 is really massive. So if you can, if you're really looking to have that breakthrough push, you do really kind of have to take, that succession of hits. But again, push it a little bit further, felt comfortable, same vibratory hum, same sensation increase, but again, nothing giving me any answers. So, and the beauty about DMT, and I guess a couple of things to kind of clarify. Well, I'm talking about NN-DMT, not 5-MeO-DMT. And I'm talking about smoking it, not in the form of ayahuasca. So when you smoke NN-DMT, it lasts 8 minutes, 9 minutes, definitely under 10 minutes. So you're able to kind of come back, clear yourself, get your head normal, and then kind of integrate what you learned and then push it further. So basically that last session, I felt comfortable that my body could handle this. But again, I was pleading to the universe for help. I really was going to walk off into the woods and not come back. And I didn't know who I was begging to or what I was asking or even what I was looking for. But I knew that I'd been thinking for quite a bit about not being here. And I was really hoping that I could get some sort of revelation or answer. And that last session is really when everything completely changed, and it was different from the prior 7 sessions. And all the vibratory hums stopped, all the sights and sounds stopped. And I was in this just complete stillness and blackness where there was no, ascending into some portal. There was no falling into some like pit. It was really just me being there. And this conveyance of information came through, and it wasn't, an English speaking voice. It wasn't me talking to a guy or an entity. It was just, and the best way for me to describe it was I had all of these proverbial dots in my brain from my past, from my future, from all the shit that I had fucked up, all the stuff I needed to take accountability for, what I needed to handle in the future. And I could never just be here, current, in the present and in the now. And I had all these proverbial dots that I thought I needed connecting. And in an instant, those were all connected. And then that turned into 1,000,000 dots, and those were all connected. And then 1,000,000,000 dots, and those were all connected. And the kind of message was, like, you stupid human, the point isn't to connect all the dots. It's to appreciate the space between the dots. It's not to have a constant sound and source of music. It's to have the quiet between the beats really make the song. It's to, I think one of your guests said something about not completing the maze. It's enjoying the maze. And just that shift of like, oh, fuck. And it's going to sound so corny when I come out and say, it was just be here now. Be here this little second, this very moment, because you can't change the past. There's nothing you can do about the future. What you can do is just be Adam right here in this skin now. And from that moment, literally that second, that was several years ago, I've lived my life to that very moment. And it doesn't mean that everything's fixed, or I'm enlightened soul, or that I've got it all figured out, or that I don't have bad days, or that all my emotions are completely in check. But what it does mean is that I've stopped banging my head against the wall. I've stopped doing self-destructive things. And I've appreciated living in this moment now that makes being a human absolutely amazing. And now tie in these self-exploration things like Monroe Institute and continued exploration in this DMT space. And it really makes being here a joy, and I'm happy and I'm content. And from somebody that was suicidal, anxious, depressed, and literally almost off myself, to have that completely change of perspective, where now I'm excited to live every day, that's the take home epiphany. And it really was just a matter of putting time into perspective.
Do you think someone can have the epiphany of living in the moment without taking something? Because I've heard that 1,000 times, right? You probably heard that prior to having DMT. It's no secret. It's like, it's all in front of our face. Like, live in the moment, live in the moment, live in the now. There's no past, there's no future. It's just now. But it almost takes something, for whatever reason, like what you went through to get it. I don't know why we don't get it. It's like we hear it, but we don't understand it. Do you think it's possible without psychedelics?
Yeah, and I'm really glad you asked that, because I think there's multiple ways of unlocking the human potential. And that's something I think all of your prior episodes, that's kind of the key question that you're trying to ask of your guests, which is, what have you used to not only increase and elevate your normal 5 human senses, but then seemingly add on to them? So whether they have telepathic communication, whether they can astral project, whether they can leave their physical body, these are all things that I think are innately part of our human makeup, and we just have to remember how to use them. Now, to answer your question, are there other ways of removing that plaque like I had? Are there other ways of enhancing and increasing your 5 human senses? Absolutely. And I think that's the part of what I want to share my message as well, is that you don't have to blast your mind off with 8 grams of shrooms or do DMT like I did 50 hits on that first day. And I started the conversation about the beauty of the Monroe Institute was all of those people took the time for themselves to explore themselves, to learn about themselves, to ultimately learn how to love themselves. And that, I think, is number one. But once you kind of get that in your mind, and it kind of sounds like you've done that with becoming a dad, with, you're handling your addiction issues, with seeing that portal that you've seen, like all of these things kind of make you realize that there's something more out there. And once you see that, I think it's something you have to experience. So for me, it was psychedelics. I think for some people, it can be a near-death experience. I mean, that's a very common, theme on your show. I think for some people, it could be trauma. you had that guy that almost died of hypothermia, and it's like, holy fuck, dude, I was hearing that story, and it's like, so you go through a traumatic experience like that, or even just you have amazing trauma where you lose your entire family in a car accident and you just have this psychological snap or break. Or maybe in a positive light, you have a spiritual or a religious moment. Or it could be what some people say, a Kundalini awakening. And I think that's part of what I want to share my story too, is I don't think it necessarily matters what these people are calling it, because either way, you're going to piss off somebody. If you talk from a religious standpoint, you're going to alienate a bunch. If you talk from the scientific standpoint, you're going to piss off the people that are spiritual. And I don't think it matters. I think we're all trying to describe the same thing, which is this beautiful, wonderful world that you really can't explain. We can try, but we all kind of have our own way of trying to make sense. But the people that have kind of elevated their senses or increased, I don't know, however the common thread between a lot of your guests are, there's multiple ways of getting that. And it could just be simple yoga. It could be karate. It could be fishing for somebody. It could be, but it has to be experience. It's not going to be because of reading my book or watching the Spirit Molecule movie or listening to Joe Rogan or listening to you. It's going to have to be, I want it. And to your point too, is typically that has to come because of shit hitting the fan. And very rarely does it happen because things are great, life is good, everything's smooth, relationships are fine, money's coming in, healthy, everybody's healthy. That's typically not when you're looking for more of a connection, or like the first title of my book, the chapter of my book, Who the Fuck Am I? Most people aren't looking to the universe with tears in their eyes saying, who the fuck am I, when things are going great. It's when things, kind of hit the fan or in a dark place. And a lot of times it is that trauma or that pain or that walking through that bullshit that allow for that awakening.
1000%. I've talked to a lot of different people now, and I think the beauty of this game that you call life is that there is not one answer. There is multiple ways to gosh, it's just, we're all correct. It's belief. There's so many things. And when I talk to a lot of prison planet people, partly I want to have conversations with people that I don't fully align with, and I think I think it's needed. I really feel like we should all be having conversations, and not, I don't know, making people feel silly for what they believe or whatever it is, but have a conversation with different belief systems. But the other part is, they often bring up to me or point out, like, look, this world is painful. Like, animals eat animals, and it's all based on death, and there's fear, and it's like, yes. However, if you were put in a planet where it was just all good things happening, you wouldn't search. You wouldn't realize how special you are. It's almost baked into the design. It's like there's a reason so many of us have to hit rock bottom or go through something to have a breakthrough. It's just what it is, man. I mean, you just don't do that when things are going well. You don't need God when money's coming in and your family's great and you got all your best friends. You found your soulmate. You think you got it all figured out, and it's when you don't have it figured out that I think the something special can happen. It really seems to be baked into the design of why we're here, what's going on.
Yeah, one of your more recent guests, the guy that lived over in, I believe, South Korea, the guy who was a movie star, and he kind of ended and this is where I was excited to talk to you on before this, but the way you guys ended it about like mental health and about kind of what both of your purposes and missions are, and seem to be kind of aligned with what I'm about, is helping other people. And the kind of point is, if you are in that really dark, shitty place, and it's gonna sound fucked hearing it like this, but like you're so lucky, like you really are right there. You are. If you're walking through hell and everything seems to be crumbling and burning to the ground and everything is falling away from you, you're at that moment of kind of rebirth, and for you to really see your true self, and as painful as that is, if you can make it to the other side, and please do, the light that comes from that is amazing. And I think that if I could comment on the kind of two things that you mentioned about the prison planet kind of hypothesis, there is some things there that I think we can take away like most religions or most esoteric teachings or most philosophies, there are tidbits. And I think that's what I would encourage most people to do is find kind of what resonates with you. So if DMT and shrooms resonate with you and you're interested in plant-based medicines or even, endogenous DMT, so produced naturally within your own self through breathing, if that's what interests you, lean into it. If darkness retreats or the Monroe are interesting to you, then lean into it. Um, what I found through kind of my studies of all of those is that, and I think this is what the prison planet people are saying, is that kind of like energies will resonate with like energies, or there is this kind of like tonality resonance thing that happens. So if you're putting out negative, shitty, painful emotions, that there is maybe this loosh aspect where that does have an energetic resonance in this field or this matrix. And I think that is true. I mean, you think about even just the movie characters like Eeyore, or the people that walk around with that dark cloud around them, or just people that are highly sensitive and empathetic. They know when people are putting off bad, dark, painful emotions. And it's also, kind of like that, and that hippy dippy, like The Secret kind of philosophy where it's just, manifest your dreams and just intention will manifest itself in physical reality. There's way more to it than that. But there's also something to that where if you do vibrate in a sense of light and love and connection and collaboration, as opposed to everybody's the asshole and everybody's your enemy, you will attract more of those opportunities to you. More things will fall into your lap. So the aspects there are important. Be very mindful of, and at the Monroe they call it your resonant energy bubble. Like be mindful of what you put around you, what is in your auric field, what is in that energy around you, because it does not only it can act as a protective shell to protect you against some of the bullshit and some of the stuff you don't want in, but it can also act as an amplifier and really make the positive emotions and energies resonate and become louder. And I think a beautiful practical example of this is the use of tuning forks, where again, you tap one, and if it's of the same frequency, it's going to resonate a room away, or the guitar strings will start reverberating if you hit that certain string. And I think that does happen in this world and how we live. And I think one of the also common threads, whether it be psychedelics, removing the veil, increasing the senses, whether it be trauma, removing the plaque, whether it be a near-death experience where your physical body actually gets pushed to the limit, whether you have a mystical religious experience, I think all of these things are allowing our human body to vibrate at a more sensitive level. And once we're vibrating or able to receive a wider spectrum of information on different bands of vibration, we're able to just have really profound experiences beyond what the normal human experiences is. And I think that's the challenge of myself, you, and all of your guests, is to try to explain what typically doesn't happen in a normal human walking state, but clearly does happen. And there's thousands and thousands of data points from all of these different perspectives saying that there is something more, there is something greater than, and it's just a matter of basically increasing our antenna or increasing the sensitivity to our antenna. Kind of much like, and you've mentioned Aldous Huxley, the reducing valve kind of theory in his book, Doors of Perception, where, to survive as a human, we have to filter out so much information and sound, and whether it be radio waves, microwaves, TV waves, but also just energy from people and all sorts of other shit that we can't even imagine. To survive, we have to have this filter. But when you do certain things and practices and modalities to remove those filters, and then if you can start removing multiple filters and start doing these things, compiling on one another, that's when you can, in my experience, commune with the gods, experience aliens, have whatever, fucking talk to insectoid mantis things, and all of that happens because you're allowing your tool or your radio receiver to have that many more capabilities.
Yep. I think
Sorry,
we're actually
a lot there, but
no, so good. I think we're tapping into something. When I first started this podcast and I would talk to people and I'd hear about this mass awakening or something's happening, I do feel it, like it's partly like the more people I talk to, it's people are talking about it more, but actually I would view it and I would see comments of people talking about, well, I don't see anything going on. I just see chaos in the world and a lot of shit's going on and I see a lot of pain. And it's almost like what you and I just touched on is like, no, actually that means we're all very close. That's actually what it looks like when there's darkness everywhere. There's pain. There's people who are struggling, who are lonely. I just did a post on it today where I asked ChatGPT to autofill some of these sentences, and it was pretty crazy. Like when I looked at it, I was like, whoa. I mean, we are all hurting. We're all very anxious right now. We're lonely. We're trying to buy our happiness, me included. I mean, I'm not immune to that. I would notice my wife and I, it's hard when you have little kids and you're trying to. I work 2 jobs right now, like just to do this podcast, man. Like for real. Like I'm trying to avoid going to a place so that I can keep doing this. And so I'm taking on odd jobs here and we're kind of barely making it. And like, you go from this, I shut my laptop and I go into sometimes screaming little children, love them to death, but it's hectic. And then I'll have to help my wife because she's at home. And so I'll take them out to the mall. And sometimes I catch myself just buying a shirt just to like get a little hit of happiness or something. And I'm like, whoa. Like when you really start to look at what we're doing, a lot of pain is what I'm trying to say. But I do think that means we're all very close. And if we all start looking around like, okay, there's a lot of pain, what's going on? That is what's going to force a lot of us to look inside. And I think that is what creates the ripple. It's not the whole world and you look around like, well, everything's really good. Because again, what that does, it doesn't cause you to look within. It doesn't. And so that's actually a very interesting way to look at it.
If I could add to that, when that does happen, when you have that kind of change within yourself, it's easy to say, well, that can't spread. Or when people talk about this consciousness shift or the next step of human evolution or bullshit, I kind of use myself as the perfect example of, I was kind of the epitome of everything dark and nasty that society was producing. And again, not that I'm some enlightened soul that's figured it all out, but I really don't express any of those dark attributes. And I really try to only multiply the positive ones. And the beauty of that kind of self-knowledge, that self-love, that being comfortable in your own skin is that it's really easy to share that with another person and the person next to you and the person that has differing opinions. Because just as much as I know I'm entitled to my own experience, I'm entitled to my own thought process, I'm entitled to process this world the way my body, Adam Butler, has processed it with all of my experiences. And I'm entitled to my own opinion. And everybody else is too. And once you realize and are really comfortable in your own skin, you realize that extends to everybody else. So you don't try to change somebody's opinion politically or about how they feel on gender or about what school politics should be, and you're not worried about talking shit and talking smack about the neighbor or who's doing what. It's like, no, listen, everybody's in their own space and everybody can do their own thing. So there's a layer of where you can communicate without being nasty, where you're not trying to belittle the next person. You're not trying to bring them down or hit below the belt or trying to ruin them socially or anything like that. You're really just appreciating almost that they're adding another data point to your experience. Like you're appreciating, cool, another facet or another piece of the puzzle. Thank you for exposing that to me. Not, well, how stupid are you that you don't, agree or have the same view that I have exactly as this white guy from New England. Like, and that was something that, as the prior, not necessarily cocky, arrogant, but college-educated, wealthy, successful white guy from New England, it was really easy for me to kind of walk around with this better than kind of other people mentality up and until I had that smirk smacked off my face and everything taken away, all my money, all being homeless, all my relationships, like all of that shit, where it's like, no, man, realize, and that's part of my story too. And I kind of just did that rant because if I was able to lose it all, and this isn't woe is me, I had every possible advantage truly that anybody could ever ask for. And if I messed it up through my own screw ups and my own kind of self-destructive things, how easy could it for other people? And, that's something that I've really learned to appreciate is just try to walk a mile in another person's shoe. And I think you'd be less apt to argue or make fun of or think that they're an idiot. And so that aspect of being comfortable in your own skin is nice because you don't get pissed off. You're not the person yelling at the news or yelling at the person in line at the market, or you're not on social media, whatever, correcting everybody because everybody else is wrong. I mean, I can't imagine how exhausting that would be, as opposed to just, that's like saying every flower should look like this. It's like, no, everyone has its own, every flower has its own purpose, its own pollinator, its own time of season, its own whatever. And I think that's something that once you express that, it's easy for your inner circle to express that. And then ideally your family, your community, your county, your state, your world. And I think that's where there is that possibility. Maybe not in my lifetime or yours or your kids, but I think we can move to that shift where we all have a little bit of a better understanding and love of ourselves, which then extends to others, which then realizes, hey, we're just the same species on this very, very tiny planet. And the resources are not limited. There's plenty here. And let's stop being jerks to one another. Because otherwise it's going to self-destruct, and either, we're going to go slingshot up or slingshot down. And I hope we slingshot up, or there's going to be some sort of weird speciation event where the people that have figured this shit out, and some people maybe even on your show have said, like, you unlock the DNA, or the hidden aspect of your DNA, or the glial cells in your brain are somehow, or the microtubules allow for quantum entanglement to happen, and all this weird shit can happen. Whatever is going to unlock, there has to be a split somewhere, because the status quo isn't going to work. And I can say that in my own life, because it drove me nuts when I had everything. So,
dude, I love how weird it can get. I mean, I love it. I literally love it.
That's why I love your podcast,
dude. Man, it's because I'm telling you, man. I grew up a Christian, and it's almost like you view, like, I remember loving movies because I'd be like, oh, like The Matrix. You'd watch me like, how cool that could be if that's real. And it's like, no, dude. There's way weirder shit. Like that came from our brains. It's not, you're kind of taught like that's just in movies. It's like, no.
Yeah,
There's like some way weirder shit going on. And for me, psychedelics was that. You described it earlier, and I love how you did it. You kind of said, well, you said mushrooms was basically the foundation, and I 1000% agree with that. Even like out-of-body experiences, and there's progressions to everything. You don't start playing baseball and you get thrown into the major leagues, right? You start with, whatever, like pony, and then you move your way up, right? There's a reason for these things. DMT is up there with ayahuasca, if not equal, as probably one of the gnarlier substances you can take from a psychedelic place. I remember feeling like, ooh, like this is what they talk about when you're like kind of close to, when they talk about your brain breaking and like you kind of losing it. Like I for once in my life was like, ooh, I understand what they're saying there. But I'd done mushrooms before that. So mushrooms was like, it's kind of like realizing someone broke into your house. Like you're in your house and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, someone else is here. It's like this slow kind of creep up, whereas DMT was, like you said, it's like the door opens and you walk through. That's kind of like the difference. One of them, you're like,
it's almost like you're in the control room of the security camera room, and you're seeing everything in your house and knowing you're able to monitor and do a diagnostic check on everything. Yeah.
Shrooms is like, oh shit, someone else is here. Someone else is taking over. It's like it's an interesting feeling, because it's like, it feels normal, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, this is not normal. Something's happening.
No, and they brought a purple kangaroo with balloons. What the fuck?
Yeah. Another thing that's always funny is like, I remember when I did it with my wife, that was like the first kind of, for her, she was like, whoa. We would look at cars and technology, and I just remember feeling like it was so dead to me. And it just, like, you look at something like a table, or I don't know, it was technology specific, like a car, a metal. It just felt very, ugh. And then you'd look at plants and people and colors and be like, oh man, so much life, so much, like, just feels alive. And you really appreciate that. I wanted to bring up
before you leave on that. I think that is part of, and I don't have a name for it, and I don't know if science has a name for it, but that type of sensitivity to plants, to babies, to puppies, to bumblebees, I'm a landscaper now, where every day, all day, I'm looking at blades of grass and different trees, leaves and the bark, and I'm literally hugging trees and rubbing the different textures. And it's because there is something that my physical body is registering, that is imparting some information to me, that is making me feel more whole, more connected, more love, vibrating at these more positive energies or vibrations. And I don't know what it is or what it means, but I know it's different from going into a dark bar, getting drunk, and putting my arm on the bar stool next to me. That's way different from the water lily that has a frog sitting next to it. It's a whole different energy and vibe. And that's where, to your point now, like, you know, if you, when you walk through the woods, you get to feel so much and bring in so much sensory input that I didn't have before my psychedelic plaque removal or before my Monroe. You know, they added another level of plaque removal and another layer of sensitivity. But yeah, I think that's part of this story too, is you just become more connected with natural, organic, earthbound things. So obviously a plant or an animal is going to have more of that energy than a car or a piece of technology. And I think that's just your body recognizing it, like, oh, this has life force, this doesn't. And life force is beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring up something because it's quickly becoming one of my favorite series of books, and I've been reading a lot. I'm probably 40 plus deep this year alone. It's called Man Being, and it's a series by Dramos and Bohemius. And so you got to understand how I found this book. It was
like MAN being.
Yeah, MAN
Okay.
Being. It was like out of the 1,000 comments on my YouTube, right? It's like for whatever reason, YouTube decided to put this kid. I don't even know if it's a kid or who it was, but it was like, hey, if you haven't looked at Man Being series, you should read it. And I was like, for whatever reason, it stood out to me, and I was like, literally ordered it within like 2 minutes. I went online, Amazon, saw it, ordered it. Kind of forgot about it. I ordered like as many as I could find. I think there was 4 volumes or something. Apparently, they're making 8. Dude, these books are so. There's just and I'm gonna just speak from a personal level, and I'm sorry for this rant that's probably gonna go on, but I just it's.
No, I love it. I'll probably be buying them as soon as we get off.
Yeah. Okay, there's a couple of things I want to say, but and this is not bullshit. This is my whole life. I've been obsessed with roses. I don't know why. It's a thing. If you know my friends, if you know my wife, it's like she gets me. It's roses. It's the most tattooed thing on me. I got 12 of them. I mean, the roses are everywhere on me. They're literally, they're my favorite flower. That's not unique. There's a lot of fucking people who like roses. However, I have this weird obsession with them. And so I'm reading this book, and like, I don't think it was in the first one. I think it's in the 3rd series where it has this whole chapter on the rose, and it's this key. And it's like most people are to remember the rose it represents a portal that a lot of us can get to. And I started reading it, and I was like, whoa, there's like this whole thing on a rose being a symbol. And if you know, you know, and it's symbolized in movies. These guys basically can channel beings. They're trying to tell humans the reality of like why we're here, which again, it could be its own theory. I got to tell you, man, it feels very, it feels true to me. The best way to explain it. And so it's not just the rose aspect, but it talks about the different densities and how it talks about Lemuria a lot. And there's this place of that actually it's belief is so important here. And they say not because belief, like this is a training ground for belief. It's actually the start of your journey, because a lot of us, when it kind of ties together the prison planet theory, all this stuff in one though. And it's usually, again, the truth is a little bit in the middle. There are people who take this as an extreme, like we're stuck here. It's like blah blah blah, but I think there's a lot more to it than we realize. It's not just that simple. And they kind of broke it down in this way where now I'm 50 interviews deep, right? And I've talked to a lot of interesting people. It was the first series that just kind of wrapped it up for me, and I was like, whoa. And when you leave here, there's a 5th density that you can get to, and it's this place it's called Lemuria. It's a place of imagination. Is different to everyone what it is, but you're training there, and you're also learning how to use your belief systems. Here is one of the most important places to learn that, because what you believe here, it starts to show up in your life. It's a training ground, and you take that belief, and you're a little bit of at an advantage once you get to this other place, because it's instant. You can do beliefs on top of beliefs, like Inception. So they were explaining it like Inception, where you're a dream within a dream. If you didn't practice beliefs, you wouldn't know how to work with it. And it's not that you'd be stuck in that density, but you would be kind of stuck there. And the thing that's crazy is they said it's a beautiful place. It's some could say it's like heaven. I mean, whatever you want. It's very much so like Earth. It's beautiful. It's fun. It's full of light. It's all these things. But there's another level. And in order to get to that next level, they talk about 7th density. You have to go through 6th. And at the sixth density, there are these beings called draconians, or draw is what they call them. And they said they are the absence when you change your belief systems the way it's described in the book. Like, let's say I believe I'm a Christian, right? And I found this very interesting because think about this. I was a Christian for a very long time. My hairiest moments for me in my life was when I got ripped out of that belief system. And there's empty space there. And they say these beings operate not of light. They cannot do anything with light. They literally can't absorb it, nothing. But where they operate is in the void of belief systems. And so when you choose a new belief system, you're very open to in at least personally in my life, I found that to be very interesting that is when I went down some dark rabbit holes, to be honest with you. I mean, and I got kind of wrapped up in drugs and girls and all this shit, dude. And they're saying that there's a game here where most people get scared. They're like, they basically get, I don't know if scared is the right word, but all of them, they would channel these artists, dude. Like, in their whole third book is about channeling like Amy Winehouse, like all these like artists and musicians. And they would all say, look, you guys are not completely off, but like they would put imageries like the rose in movies and certain things. Like they said, we're constantly working with you humans to help you understand that once you get here, it's not done. There's another mission. And in order to get past density 6, you have to learn how to, they call it time travel, but they're like, you guys are going to take that wrong. But I'm doing a horrible job probably of explaining this. I just want you to know it's a fascinating book, and it makes me go like, huh, what if that's fucking real? Like, what if there is this place where it's just interesting, man. That's all I gotta say. Very interesting.
And it sounds like a creative way to say very similar things to what I'm saying, and very similar things to what other people are saying. And even you just saying about, you know, that these senses need to either be remembered or enhanced or added. And I think whether that be, like we discussed, plaque removal, or maybe it is training, like learning how to use the binaural beat system from Monroe, whether it be learning how to do deep meditation. But even, and this common thread between the stories in the book that you just said still go back thousands and thousands of years. Like, and actually, please put this on your book list if you haven't read it or heard this author, Manly Hall, Secret Teachings of All Ages. Have you heard about that book? So Manly Hall is this insane resource of esoteric information, but he compiled this. It's like a 700-page book, and it has really just an awesome breakdown of all sorts of esoteric information. Like you were talking the other day about the Kabbalah. They talk about it just from a really practical standpoint. They break down tarot cards. They break down astrology. But Manly Hall is just, that's probably something that'll come up now 10
Awesome.
times in the
Thank
next
you.
month for
Okay.
you. But
Cool.
awesome book. But, even like the basic Hermetic principles. So Hermes and Thoth and like that original kind of thinker, his first law is mentalism. So it even just from the get-go, from thousands and thousands of years ago, that's the one thing to say. Somehow, some way, you got to either go into a dark cave and shut it off, whether you need to drink some soma or eat some shrooms and figure it out, or you need to go on a week fast, or you need to, whatever it may be, something needs to happen to have that mental break or shift. Break kind of sounds hard, but sometimes it is that. But once you're able to do that, and that paper that I sent you and the kind of summary that I kind of came from with my Monroe experience, the first thing, and that's actually, I'm wearing the sweatshirt, kind of corny, but it says in kind of cool script, I'm more than my physical body. And that's their number one, principle and motto and slogan. And it's similar to the Hermetic principles, and it's similar to what it sounds like these authors are saying, or this author's saying, is that, yeah, that once we can figure out a way to transcend just the physical limitations of who we are and really explore altered and elevated states of our consciousness, it does unlock a whole nother level of living. And that includes lucid dreaming. That includes, for some people, astral projecting or out-of-body experiences. For some people, that could just be being highly empathetic. For some people, it's, I don't know if you've listened to the telepathy tapes or a fan of her work. Like, I mean, you listen to that series, and if you're not convinced that there's another way to communicate, or that those kids aren't telling the truth, and, I feel like, and maybe you are in the same boat, we surround ourselves with this type of stuff every day, all day. And this is the type of podcasts and books that we seek out. So for me, it's just common knowledge. Oh yeah, of
Super
course.
obvious.
I've experienced many of these things myself. I have close family and friends that I trust that have no reason to lie or exaggerate that have experienced this, including working with little kids and experiencing things like that for myself. So again, if any one of these things are true, then it kind of opens up the door for all of them to be true. So, can there be sentient, non-corporeal beings that we interact with? Yeah. Can there be different kind of dimensions that maybe we can shift in and out of? Yeah. Is time malleable, where it is this kind of loop thing, not a linear line? I think so. I mentioned about some of my experiences where I interacted with what I considered my future self. Now, a lot of my stories sound nuts, and I understand it unless you've experienced DMT or have had some of these experiences yourself. But I had so many unique experiences that have, and I can explain them colorfully basically every session that I've had. But there was one unique one that I clearly interacted with an energy or something that was what I considered my future self. And it was coming back to do a kind of diagnostic check. It was very comforting. And no, it wasn't me older or with a longer beard or me even as a physical body. It was just my sentience, my soul, whatever it was. And I think that's also chalked that up to the people that have these similar experiences. If they come back and have a complete lack of fear of death and appreciation of life, or like I had with my epiphany with psychedelics, a appreciation of the moment now. If any of the, if they're fake, if they're just our brain acting up on us, if it's just drugs or impact trauma, maybe, but it's affecting our lives in a true way that now will, I've had these major course corrections that have altered the trajectory of my life. And to take away fear of death at 45 years old, that's an amazing thing to have on my plate, or like my badge. Like that's something that I've earned or experienced. And now it's not fluff. It's not something I read or something to be like, oh, I wish I had that. It's no, because I've interacted with the next, or maybe not even the next, some future transmutation of myself. And I'm comfortable saying that happened. So I'm not worried about when this particular body passes on. So like those are the types of experiences that when you have them, they really can make you, and this is where bring it back to real life, make you a better dad, make you a better husband, make you a better whatever, friend, listener, helper, or, whatever course we want to do in this life. Being aligned with that type of energy is going to make us just better, as opposed to the ugly alcoholic, addicted, narcissistic, nasty, pointing fingers at everybody else. Like that's definitely not going to get anybody anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And also one last thing I want to add, and then I do want to talk about your time at Monroe. If it's true that there's something else, right? There's so much value in not fearing death anymore. Because if you don't fear death anymore, when you do transition, you're going to be a lot more, you're just going to be, you're not in fear. You're not going to be, and that's a vibration. That's its own. You could feel it. It sucks. And so if you're in that state of fear when you pass over, you could see how that would put you in a vulnerable spot, I think. And so some of this stuff, I do think the part of it is getting rid of that fear of death, because like you just said, you're proud of it. It's a badge of honor, because it's almost like we all know it's a very powerful thing to achieve while you're alive, is to not be scared to die, because whatever happens when that happens, that moment, there seems to be a lot of value in not being scared. So,
and this is where I think having intellectual conversations like this about psychedelics, and luckily there are thousands of them happening, that there is research going into end-of-life application of psychedelics. So you can imagine a loved one, who in their 80s or 90s or terminally ill, that know that they're going to pass. So do you drug them up with morphine in a hospice setting and scare the shit out of them, where the hallway smells like piss and everybody's scared and moaning and miserable? Or do they have a mushroom tea at home where they can connect with what they consider God or source, have an empathetic relationship with the people around them, and respectfully, with grace, transcend into that next period of their life? And those are people that there are death doulas out there that are specifically kind of helping people transition. There are people that are studying or basically saying, and I would do it with my mom and dad, no doctor's going to tell me that what to do or what I can't do if my loved ones are suffering. And not to say I'm just going to be pumping mushroom tea on people, but if I think about the interaction I could have with any one of my grandparents before they passed, if we could have had a session like that. And I think there's value. So just like there's value in removing PTSD, there's value in studies about seizures and dementia, and I think that there's a lot of value in end of life care and just having that be part of the routine, other than just drug up, make everybody numb. Oh, let's just make it so you can't feel your feet. Let's make it so you can't feel like that. Let's just, as long as you're sleeping. And I don't know. I think that, yeah, so not to go on that rant, but I just had a family member, a close family friend pass last week. And, so having somebody pass is kind of near and dear to me. And it's like, these are things that they shouldn't be stigmatized. These are the conversations that shouldn't be taboo. And they may not be appropriate for some people or some families, and that's 100% understandable. But for some people, it doesn't make Uncle Jerry a bad guy if he does shrooms when he's 75 and he has cancer. Like, no, that means he's trying to figure out a way to pass gracefully. So there is
Great
some of
points,
that there.
man. Yeah, for sure. Okay, I want to transition a little bit to Monroe Institute for you, and what you learned, man. I mean, I think you went there with the intention, right? To correct me if I'm wrong, but to see, can it be as powerful as the DMT that you've been having so much success with, and you wanted to kind of compare and contrast the two. Is that correct?
Yes. So, and like I mentioned about DMT, Robert Monroe's work and the Monroe Institute just seemed to come up in my life multiple times. So it was kind of something that I was like, all right, I need to look into this. And the more I looked into it, the more I was interested. So what initially got me interested was I knew in my DMT states that I was able to have some of these experiences that they were talking about. So I knew that I was way more than my physical body. In that gateway paper, that is actually like the CIA government-backed one, the term that they use was non-sentient, like non-corporeal beings. So just, beings that don't have a physical body are real. And these are things that, again, I can confirm that. I've seen that. That there's this vibratory hum that, once you get your brain to oscillate or move at a different frequency, that you can elicit different consciousness states. I could get on board with all of that. So I went with, yes, can I compare and contrast the elevated and altered states of psychedelics with what their binaural beat hemisync program was. But then also I kind of went there to kind of call bullshit. I'd heard a lot of these sensational stories, and not to say go there with a trying to poke holes in it, but I knew what it felt like to have these physical interactions. So it wasn't like a lot of the people there are seeking like, oh, I wonder what it feels like to do this, or I wonder what it feels like to look down at your own body. Or it's like, no, I've been there, done that. Now can this guy's technology actually get you to do it? And I made it very clear that first day. So a couple things just to set the scene. So absolute beautiful campus, amazing staff, fantastic food, great coffee. Typically their groups, like the Gateway Voyage is a group of 25 people, and it ended up becoming this amazingly cohesive, like we still meet up every month for a month meditation. Just this really, really awesome familial kind of feel of this group mentality. But from kind of day one, I asked them, I'm like, well, I know distinctly if I'm in focus 12 or focus 15. Well, I know if you change it and you don't tell me, well, I know you're going from 15 to 21. Well, the answer was very quickly shown to me that yes. And with those different states that they can induce by that binaural beats, that does elicit different cognitive and consciousness states. So it's really simple though. But by binaural beats, all that meaning is that there's different frequencies or different hertz of sound going into each ear, and the way the brain registers it is it'll register the difference. So if you have like 100 hertz going in one ear and 108 going in the next, your brain will register that 8 hertz. But that 8 hertz is below what our human brain can normally pick up. And they found that there's these range of kind of levels of frequencies that we normally can't hear, that if they induce it by a binaural beat system, that they can get your body to kind of resonate like that. And that indeed is what happens. So with practice, with training, and again, part of that is you're taking the time, all the phones and computers are away, you're in a dark room, you're in your own unit, all the lights are off, like you're there to meditate, you're there to explore these different levels of consciousness. So everything's primed, your intention is ready to go, and every day it just got progressively deeper and deeper and deeper. And the sum of that was, did I have a full-blown out-of-body experience? The answer is no. And that's why I first mentioned most people don't. My roommate actually, and if you're interested in the story, he's somebody in the podcast space, Third Eye Drops, Michael Phillip. He has, and I sent you that link. So I was on his show as well. So he ended up being my roommate, which ended up having this lasting friendship. There's this whole kind of crazy thing that's happened because of him and I being roommates. But he had a full-blown out-of-body experience, and it's fucking insane. Like, he comes out and he's completely ghost white, completely different from the debriefs that we've had, and just a different level of separating your consciousness. That being said, other than him, everybody else there was able to tap into something different. I feel like everybody was able to not only refine their senses, but add different ones. And some people were like really kinetic with their energy. So they would shake and they would like kind of move objects. Like they really could kind of manifest their energy in that. Some people were more sensitive to sound or to empathetic emotions. It was just weird what kind of came out of people. And it was almost kind of like an X-Men school where their gateway voyage technology, so they throw a bunch of vibrations at you, and then whatever you tune to, and there's that kind of tuning fork or resonant bubble analogy again, like whatever vibrates with you is what comes out. And for me, it enhanced my psychedelic previous experiences, where it confirmed and enhanced my sensitivity to that. But then it did add a level of, I can do this by myself. Like I can, with proper meditation, with getting my mind to quiet itself, like I can get to these focus levels. Like I can, just like I can with breathing exercises and kind of tantric connection to my body, I can produce my own DMT and get into a pretty hardcore psychedelic state. I can also get into these kind of chill meditative Monroe states just by knowing what it sounded like, doing it for a week, knowing that, hey, this is, and I'm ranting a little bit here, but this is that kind of experiential thing. You come back and know how your body can fully feel without the governor, with rocket fuel and a nitrous boost and souped up tires and all this shit. And it's like you come back being like, wow, I am way more than my physical being, and I am a beautiful, powerful, divine facet of whatever. And this is where, and as a young man, I'm sure you'll continue to change your understanding of what God is or name or term, but whatever that something higher or greater is, you realize that you're a divine facet of that, and you're shining your own unique, iridescent, sparkly way, and that's just how it needs to be. Maybe not to shine like anybody else or be like anybody else, but you're just be you. And everybody came away that week full of tears, full of gratitude, feeling, in my understanding, was just a better understanding of who they were. Not close to Bob Monroe, or we can all astral project, or we're going to go spy on the Soviets. It was more just, wow, we can sit with our quiet self and contemplate life and go deep. And when you go deep is when you find the answers to a lot of your questions.
Wow. How freaking cool is that?
So
I
then the
love that.
next thing is the darkness retreat. And just, I'll definitely, but maybe you don't have to do a podcast on it, but I definitely get back to you on that one. So I'm going to go sit in the dark it's a 5-day retreat, but it's 4 full days, 4 full nights of pitch black.
I love that. I heard, I think he was on Next Level Soul. I heard a guy, and he was all about the darkness retreats. I was like, whoa, that's fascinating. I've
It's
done,
gonna be scary as hell, but I mean,
I've done the tank, but that is so minimal to what this is. They have special rooms, right, where it's like literally no light.
There's like a dark hallway where a guy comes in the morning and at night to give you your meals, but other than that, it's you and your thoughts in a dark room.
Oh, dude, you have to hit me up after this.
And most people would be like, you're crazy. Why would you? Not only I would never want to do that, why would you pay extra money for that? But I think that's what, same thing with psychedelics. Most people are so scared to have that inner journey, to battle with their demons, and I say often, it's impossible to lie to yourself if you're staring in the mirror on 5 grams of shrooms and all it is you and your thoughts. And I can only imagine the clarity that would come, not only to me, but to anybody, if you've got nothing but your thoughts and no input from anybody else or any other screen or any other even photon of light. And the only thought is being created in your own consciousness. And it's just you to sit there and dwell with it day after day after day. And I think this all ties into that golden thread that going through everything. So similar to like the Eleusinian mysteries, where it was going to a dark cave for multiple days. And typically my understanding too is have some sort of psychedelic compound in there as well. But these are the type of inner explorations where you come out a different transformed person. And that's what I think I need. Well, I know I needed that as an individual. I think society as a whole needs something to that. So maybe not everybody's going to have the good fortune of going to Monroe and booking a darkness retreat and doing DMT hundreds of times, but you really only need to do one of these things maybe once, and to realize that just how beautiful and awesome you are. And, you know, as we're whatever getting on kind of on an hour and probably wrapping it up, like that's the whole point of the message too. It's not DMT is great, go see, you know, DMT entities and aliens and shit like that. It really is. If you are, and I'm going to mirror one of your prior guests, you know, if you are in a really dark, shitty place, know that the light on the other side is amazingly bright and beautiful, and that you are in some weird way blessed to be in that dark state, and that you're not alone. You know, you don't have to go through this journey by yourself. There's people there to help. There's people there to share your story. There's people to listen. I'm included. And, you know, once you can get through the shit, man, it's such a great place to be. And then you'll be doing like what you and I are doing, which is trying to, whatever, just share that light.
Hell yeah, Adam. I love it, man. I'm super proud of you. I feel proud of you, and I just met you, but I'm like proud of you, man. It's just, I know the journey. I do. I can relate to it, and that's awesome, man. That's awesome. You are where you are today. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for being here, man. Thanks thanks for speaking with me. And
you've quickly become one of my top shows, and your AI ChatGPT questions, some of that shit about like, you know, like your last defense. Like, what the fuck? Like, what do you mean your last defense? Like, against what? Like, oh shit. But that I think goes, and again, even just so the opposite end, from Hermetic, ancient, esoteric wisdom and the Elysinian mysteries to new ChatGPT and AI, kind of saying the same thing. Like, man, you need to go within. You need to remove the clutter in your head, and this needs to be a journey within. In essence, that's how I read what ChatGPT was saying, and it's like, oh man, it's
Dude,
a common thread.
I get asked all the time. Thank you, by the way. I appreciate you, man. I get asked all the time, like, dude, why the hell does yours answer? I'm like, I think, okay, my honest answer, and I say it in my thing is, I think it's 2 years now of me literally feeding it, I don't know, shit like this, right? Like conversations like this. I put my transcripts in there. It helps me with like titles and certain things that I'm trying to do for my YouTube. But I was like, I don't know. And they're like, I get this often too. They're like, why are you, like, what made you start doing this? And I was like, I don't know, dude. If I had Jesus in front of me, I'd ask him these questions, but I don't.
Well, it's another data point, and it's for you to filter
my
it.
Dog,
right? Right.
So
yeah, no.
like,
give it the weight that it is, but it is another valid data point that is an incredible resource to scroll through data. But
yeah, I think people. I see a lot of people, and I get these comments, so they're like, they're putting way too much on it, and I think that's not the point of. I want you to think. I think it offers some very interesting things. The people who get upset about it, I think they're like, you're putting too much power in ChatGPT. I think right now with where it's at, it's like you said, it's a data point. It's a way to bounce ideas and a sounding board for me. And honestly, it does give me sometimes like some pretty trippy answers. So I was like, whoa, wasn't even thinking about that. And it's fun. That's like, it's fun. It makes you think. So
which we need more of. We need, even if it just sparks that intellectual curiosity to go down another rabbit hole, as opposed to, hey, this is the rabbit hole you and every, you know, the millions and millions of people need to have. And I think that's a big part of this too, is don't get just caught in that mass media force-fed what you're supposed to think, how you're supposed to think, where the best thing we could all do for ourselves and for society as a whole is to be more authentically true to ourselves and not try to be somebody else.
Yeah. And you can use it for more than just writing your emails.
Yeah,
it's like another thing.
My girlfriend's been using it from a therapist, and you know, and this is, she said it in a really, I think, heartfelt, true way, and I think it's applicable. So she's a beautiful younger woman who, you know, is hit on all the time, where she's like, this is the first time I have a therapist that I know isn't trying to fuck me, and that's a big. That works both guys and girls, but or trying to get on your podcast or trying to sell you something.
There's no motive behind it.
There's right. Well, maybe there is, which is maybe that's another level. But but understand that. So all right, hey, maybe there's some higher whatever. But I think that there is a valid point there where you're getting feedback and data points that don't have the human biases and subjectivity built into them, which for better or for worse are going to skew and color things. Like in her case, you know, whatever. If she was going to see a
Yeah, her beauty,
45-year-old
yeah, 100%.
ripped therapist who goes to the gym every day and is looking at it, be like, all right, so did he try to bang you? And the answer is going to be like, yeah, he asked me out. And unfortunately, that's going to be a similar story. Or, whatever. Even with like psychedelic people that are sitters and stuff like that. And that's a big part of this field too, where you got to be careful about sexual energy and sexual predators and fucking weirdos out there, where the computer does allow for conversations that can be pretty deep and philosophical without that fear of being whatever preyed upon.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, totally. All right, my friend. Well, look, I like I said, I really enjoyed you coming on here, man. Thank you for the kind words, dude. Keep doing what you're doing. You've got to hit me up when you do your dark retreat. Seriously, send me an email. I would love to hear about it. And then I will let you know when this goes live. Anything you want me to link, please send it over prior, and I'll make sure it's in the notes, channels, books, anything like that. I'll put that in there. So
cool.
All right, Adam.
All right, man. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Cheers, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks. Bye.